Welcome back, everybody, to the NCAA Next Up Dynasty here on NCAA Football 14. Today, we are going over the quarterfinal round here for the Season 3 College Football Playoff. In the last episode, we went over the first round games, so in case you missed that episode or any other episode in the series, I recommend you check out the series playlist to help yourself get caught up before coming back here. So in the last episode, we had 4 games. Middle Tennessee State, Oklahoma, Georgia, and Ohio State all won and are all moving on here to the second round to face off against teams who had first-round byes, being Florida, Cal, USC, and Virginia Tech. These 4 games are being played at big-time bowl sites such as the Rose Bowl, the Orange Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl, and the Sugar Bowl. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Let's get this one started off hot with probably the most anticipated game of the day. Number 3 seeded USC faces off against number 6 seeded Ohio State at the Rose Bowl with a semifinal spot on the line. This is a rematch of the Big Ten Championship, a game that USC ended up winning. Ohio State was the best team in the Big Ten through the regular season. They went 11-1, and they looked really, really good. They looked unstoppable until they ran into USC in Indianapolis. Although Ohio State only lost the Big Ten Championship by 1 possession, if you watched that game, it was clear USC was in control the entire time until Ohio State made a nice comeback in the fourth quarter. Regardless, this Buckeye team is phenomenal. They were my preseason pick for the national championship, and that has not wavered. I still believe this is the team to beat in college football, and I think they are a better team than USC, even if the Trojans beat them earlier in the season in the conference championship. Ohio State is led by sophomore quarterback Puma Whitlock, arguably the best quarterback prospect in the country. He finished in second place in our Heisman voting, and these guys have plenty of weapons on the offensive side of the ball. Running back Mookie Davis is a dynamic playmaker, and they've got great receivers with Auden Green, Matthew Mountbatten, Kermit Wiltz, and Trey Miller. Defensively, the Buckeyes are very stout as well, with good players in all 3 levels. The defensive line, the linebacking core, and the secondary. Nobody in the country has a higher point differential than the Buckeyes, but they've got a very tough test in front of them. The USC Trojans, who dominated Ohio State in the conference championship game. And again, that ended as a 1-score game. But USC was the far better team in the first 3 quarters of that matchup, ultimately gifting them a first-round bye and the number 3 seed overall in the playoffs. They've got an opportunity to beat the Buckeyes twice, which is a lot easier said than done, because I do feel that Ohio State, on paper, is the better team, but you can make the argument that USC is the better resume with more big-time wins. They beat Michigan State on the road. They beat Oregon, a playoff team, on the road. And obviously, they beat Ohio State in Indianapolis. Now they get to play at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, which is basically a home game for them. I expect to see a lot of USC fans in the crowd today. The Trojans are led by quarterback Scotty Kimbrell, the senior, who put on a masterclass against Ohio State in the conference championship, and USC has not had a game since then. Monty Bradley, Squeezy Pryor-Escobar, Tay Devine, Cash Wade Jr., and Caden Morgan lead a very talented offense. Defensively, they're a young group with a good pass rush and a lot of talented players. I think luck is on USC's side because every season in this series so far, the 3 seed has won the national title. In year 1, Georgia was the 3 seed. They won the championship. In season 2, last year, TCU was the 3 seed. They went on winning the championship. So if history repeats itself, the USC Trojans could be in line for a national title, but their road starts off with a major challenge as they face off in a rematch against the Ohio State University here at the Rose Bowl for a spot in the semifinals on the line. The winner will face off against the winner of the Fiesta Bowl, Georgia or Cal, in the college football playoff semifinals. USC opens up with the football. Here's Kimbrell on first down, goes short. Pass is hauled in by the tight end, Henry Goodchild II. USC runs more 11 personnel, which is a 2 tight end set, than just about anybody in the entire country. The Trojans would open up things with a field goal, and thus they lead 3-0. Let's get a look at the Ohio State offense, who performed very well in the first round of the playoff at home against a very good Baylor defense, as Whitlock goes downfield for the slot receiver Kermit Wiltz, who gets nearly 30. The Buckeyes have it in the red zone, 3rd and 3. Whitlock looks to throw it. Now he's going to scramble with room up the middle. He is in for a touchdown, and the Ohio State University is on the board. The Buckeyes did not set the tone in the conference championship game against USC. That does not look to be an issue today. On the following possession, the running back Mookie Davis takes it in off the screen, and the Buckeyes extend their lead as they're now up 14-3. USC's offense has hit a rough patch, and that play is a perfect explanation as to why. Scotty Kimbrell loses 5, wrapped up by the linebacker Jonathan Williams, one of the big leaders on this Ohio State defense. On third down, Kimbrell under pressure, and he's picked off. Jonathan Williams again makes the play and gets it past the 30. The Buckeyes are clicking on all cylinders right now. If you remember last year, Ohio State lost in the semifinals on this very field against Florida, but today they look really good as they nearly lost it off of a fumble. Nice sack by the linebacker Vladimir Stroholan as Ohio State would kick a field goal. They lead 17-3. Scotty Kimbrell has all day to throw it, but it is broken up, and USC's offense, who looked dominant in the conference championship, now looks lost. Ohio State has an opportunity to extend the lead late in the first half, and they will do just that. The senior tight end, Trey Miller, with the score. Puma Whitlock now has 3 all-purpose touchdowns and has not thrown an incompletion. This game is trending towards blowout status fast as Ohio State leads 24-3. The Buckeyes would start with the ball in the second half as if things were not already bad enough here for USC, as the kick would be good off of a nice drive from Ohio State. They get the field goal, and now they lead 27-3. USC has to wake up. Ohio State nearly came back down 24 in the conference championship, so I guess USC technically can do it too, as they have the 3rd and 2. Looking again on the board again, Scotty Kimbrell on the option goes backwards. He loses 2, wrapped up by one of the defensive backs, Cassius Gobro, the All-American safety. USC would only elect to kick a field goal here on 4th and 4. I feel like at this stage of the game, it just doesn't hurt to be aggressive and go for it. Well, they're going to kick instead, get themselves back on the board for the first time since the first quarter. On USC's following drive, they would get it all the way down the field as on 3rd and goal, Kimbrell tosses it to his backup running back, John London, who is in for a touchdown. And USC's making it a little bit closer as they now only trail by 14. They've still got to get a stop on this next drive, and spoiler alert, I don't think it's going to happen. Ohio State would march all the way down the field as Puma Whitlock rolls out to the left and takes it in for his 2nd touchdown of the game, and I think that might be the icing on the cake. A big play for the quarterback, Puma Whitlock, who has now scored 4 times today, 2 in the air, 2 on the ground, and Ohio State is back up by 21. USC is just hanging on for dear life as Kimbrell launches a dime in the end zone for one of his tight ends, Brian Johnson, the freshman. So that's something. At least USC is making the score look competitive, but truthfully, this game was never really close. Ohio State completely dominated early, and although USC is only down by 2 scores, it does not look good for them at all. Ohio State would march down the field a little bit. They'd kick a field goal, now up by 17. And here's the icing on the cake. Scotty Kimbrell's final collegiate pass is picked off in the secondary by one of the safeties, and this game is over. The Ohio State University is moving on to the Final Four as they get revenge on USC 37-20. After losing in the conference championship to USC, the Buckeyes get back at them in the game that really matters. Ohio State lost here in the Rose Bowl as the number 2 seed last year against Florida, but this year, as the lower seed, they win and are moving on to the semis to face off against either Georgia or Cal. A big-time win here for Ohio State. I think this game was not as close as the score suggested. Puma Whitlock is an outstanding young quarterback. This guy's so talented. He makes plays constantly. Mookie Davis with a big game as well. Ohio State only gave Davis the ball 9 times against Baylor. Today they gave it to him 29 times. Defensively, Ohio State was very solid as well. As for USC, Scotty Kimbrell turned the ball over twice. USC did not have a hard time moving the ball down the field, especially late in this game, but their consistency early really costed them, and although they had some nice drives in the 4th quarter, it was ultimately a tale of too little too late, and their defense did not do enough to help their offense propel forward for a comeback. The next game we'll take a look at is the 12th-seeded Oklahoma Sooners facing off against the number 4-seeded ACC champion Virginia Tech Hokies here at the Sugar Bowl. Oklahoma snuck into the college football playoff as the final team. They, of course, finished with the same amount of points as Navy, but they got the tiebreaker to get that final spot. Oklahoma went to Tuscaloosa in the first round and dominated the Alabama Crimson Tide. Their defense got to the quarterback 10 separate times. Yes, you heard me correctly, 10 sacks. Oklahoma may have only won 9 games, but on paper, they are one of the best teams in this college football playoff. And I would not be surprised in the slightest to see them win another game and move on to the Final Four. Oklahoma played in the Sugar Bowl last year in the quarterfinals, and they lost in heartbreaking fashion to Middle Tennessee State. So today, they are looking for, in essence, their revenge. They're back in the Sugar Bowl, and they've got a chance to right their wrongs. Senior quarterback Romeo Colucci leads the way, a projected top pick in this year's draft. They've got plenty of good weapons on offense, specifically Darion Seals and Noah Hampton. We saw Oklahoma's defense in full force dominate the Alabama offense. I mean, for Christ's sakes, they had 10 sacks, 4 of which were by Adrian Moore, who might have played himself into the #1 overall pick discussion. Their opponent today is the Virginia Tech Hokey Pokeys, who got the last first-round bye, narrowly edging out Middle Tennessee State for that 4th spot. Virginia Tech had a really solid season going 10-2, and they completely dominated Navy in the ACC Championship 29-0. Despite blowing out Navy, I think this ACC Championship was more about Navy's shortcomings rather than Virginia Tech playing really well, and I don't really think Virginia Tech passed the eye test in that game, so they still have a lot to prove. They did beat Florida State early in the season, but losses to Washington and Duke questioned their ability against really, really good teams. However, we did see them beat Navy by 29. That is absolutely their signature win. DeAndre Jones is a very talented young quarterback. They've got a solid group of weapons with Edgar Frazier, Marcus Barnes, and Rymel Godfrey. Defensively, they're pretty solid too. I really like their secondary. They've got some good corners. Brandon Higgins, 11.5 sacks. John Henry Lefeuve is a really solid linebacker as well. Can Oklahoma keep things rolling here and move on to the semifinals, or will it be Virginia Tech, the final remaining ACC team, who moves on into the top 4 here at the All-State Sugar Bowl? The winner will face off against the winner of our final game today, Florida or Middle Tennessee State. So let's get this started here at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. I see a lot of red. Is it Virginia Tech red or is it Oklahoma red? I think it's more Oklahoma red. The Sooners have a lot of fans. They've traveled very well here, clearly to New Orleans. As Virginia Tech opens up with the ball, Jones is sacked on 3rd and 4, wrapped up by the linebacker Brigham Bell. So now we'll get to see the Oklahoma offense, led by Heisman finalist Romeo Colucci, as he goes short to the senior running back Darion Seals, who gets a solid gain of 20. That play would lead to an Oklahoma field goal. They lead 3-0. And then on Oklahoma's following drive, they would have a 4th and 1 on the goal line and would elect to go for it. Colucci looks to throw it, and his pass is picked off. Rob Ruffin with the interception, and he'll get a big return pushed out of bounds by Colucci at the 30. Virginia Tech's offense does not look good here through the opening couple of drives. They have to take advantage of this field position off of a huge turnover. 3rd and 9, Jones under pressure. Can't get rid of it, and he is sacked again. Corey Williams, the big defensive tackle, brings him down, and that drive stalls out. Oklahoma gets it back as Romeo Colucci breaks a tackle on the option. Huge run for the senior Colucci as he gets it inside the 15. Romeo Colucci's a phenomenal passer, but he's got some wheels too as he hands it off here for Darion Seals, who is untouched into the end zone for a touchdown. Oklahoma looks pretty good early on here. They're not your ordinary 12 seed as they lead 10-0. Virginia Tech has it back, and this drive ends in another sack. Adrian Moore now has 16.5 sacks on the year. Oklahoma's pass rush is picked up right where they left off from the Alabama game. So the Sooners have it back as Colucci goes downfield for Noah Hampton for a gain of 22. If Oklahoma scores again, they can really make this game out of hand. Here's a nice run up the middle. Into the red zone is Darion Seals, who gets around 14 yards. Can Oklahoma punch it in? They would not, and would elect for a field goal as it's now 13-0. 3rd and inches, Jones is sacked yet again. Another drive ends with a sack. Buck Ratliff brings him down as we go to the following Oklahoma possession. Big run for Romeo Colucci on the read option, gets it inside the 10. This game has been so one-sided. Oklahoma has dominated on both sides of the ball. On first and goal, Colucci has plenty of time in the pocket, and he connects with Eric Denman for the touchdown. Oklahoma now leads it 20-0. Virginia Tech has to wake up fast. Here's a pitch to the outside on third down. Edgar Frazier loses 3, wrapped up by Hassan Drame. Finally, a drive doesn't end off in a sack. It ends up in a tackle for loss. Following Oklahoma possession would result in another touchdown. It's Seth Dortch with the score, and it is now 27-0. Boomer Sooner. Oklahoma looks unstoppable right now. Virginia Tech has it back, 2nd and 5. Jones looks to run, and he is sacked yet again. Corey Williams with his 2nd of the game. And Oklahoma gets the ball back yet again as Colucci goes downfield for Noah Hampton, who gets a solid gain there for the Sooners. And Oklahoma's going to look to tack on 3 more points before the end of the half here as the field goal kicker beats the buzzer, and the kick is good. The Oklahoma Sooners are in full control. They lead 30-0 here against Virginia Tech. What a one-sided start. Maybe Virginia Tech can make some noise in the second half, but there's one problem. They don't even start with the ball. Oklahoma opens up on offense here in the third quarter, and they're picking up right where they left off. On 1st and 14, Colucci goes downfield for Seth Dortch, his 2nd receiving touchdown of the game, and it is now 37-0. Look at the total yards, 472-45. That's a perfect description of how this game is going. Here's DeAndre Jones on 2nd down, sacked again, this time by Paul Brown. Everybody's getting a sack for Oklahoma. It's like Oprah handing out car keys. You get a sack. You get a sack. Oklahoma would tack on another field goal on their following possession, and they now lead 40-0. DeAndre Jones on 1st down with a solid run. He gets a 1st down to the 40. I think that's the first good offensive play we've covered in the entire game for Virginia Tech. Following play, Jones is intercepted. The fun does not last long. Junior Brown, the sophomore corner, picks it off, and Oklahoma forces their first defensive turnover of the game. They'll get it back on offense, up by 40, but they're still not done. Colucci connects with Tracy Moore for a gain of 27 yards. A huge gain there for the Oklahoma Sooners. That would result in another field goal. Here we are in the fourth quarter. It's 43-0, and look at this. Virginia Tech has finally done it! They've scored a touchdown. It's Edgar Frazier with the score. It's like when Chris Paul hit the big 3 to cut the lead to 36. Oklahoma was not satisfied with their lead, so they would score once again. Romeo Colucci with a rushing score on the read option. That's pretty much how this game would end. 50-7 is your final, and Oklahoma, the 12th seed, the lowest seeded team in the tournament, is moving on to the Final Four in dominant fashion. They did not just beat Alabama and Virginia Tech, but they dominated both games, particularly Virginia Tech. Oklahoma wrapped up over 650 offensive yards. They had 8 more sacks defensively today. This was a hard game to watch, I won't lie. I will say Romeo Colucci performed very well. Even if Oklahoma had adequate quarterback play, they still would have won, probably by a lot. But you got to give Romeo credit. He made some really impressive throws today and overall was very solid. Colucci and Seals were good on the ground. Seth Dortch was the leading receiver. Noah Hampton had 10 pancakes, my goodness. And then defensively, Corey Williams had 3 sacks. Adrian Moore had 2 more. And then they forced a couple of turnovers. As for Virginia Tech, they played horribly. I just could sense something was not right with this team when I watched them in the ACC Championship against Navy. I was completely correct about that game being more because of Navy's shortcomings rather than Virginia Tech being really good. They just didn't pass the eye test to me, and that came to full fruition today. That starts at quarterback with DeAndre Jones, and while he had no pass protection at all, he still did not play great. If Virginia Tech had adequate quarterback play, they still would have lost by a lot, but that does not mean DeAndre Jones played well. That also does not mean his offensive line gave him any protection. 4 of the starters allowed 2 sacks, whereas Virginia Tech had 0 sacks. Oklahoma, through 2 playoff games, has 18 sacks, and they are moving on to the Final Four against either Florida or Middle Tennessee State. That'll bring us to the Fiesta Bowl. The number 2 seeded California Golden Bears face off against the number 7 seeded Georgia Bulldogs for a spot in the semifinals. The winner of this game will have a date with Ohio State. We'll start with the Georgia Bulldogs, the team who won the national title 2 years ago in season number 1. They made it back this year as an at-large team. They beat Oregon in a really tough first-round game, and they get here to the Fiesta Bowl to face off against the University of California. Georgia's got the talent to beat anybody. They've got plenty of talented players on both sides of the ball. All of their young offensive players have really blossomed this year, and a lot of their key defensive players from their national title team 2 years ago are still here. Now, Georgia does have some losses. They lost to a mediocre Tennessee team, and they got killed by Florida, who we're going to look at later today. But they've played well down the stretch, and they're coming off a nice win against Oregon at home. Quarterback Aaron Katchakan had a phenomenal season, finishing in 4th for the Heisman Trophy voting. They've got a really young group of skill position players with freshmen Miko Alexander and Marquise Edwards. Monty Grant leads a talented receiving core along with Sawyer Roberts and Jair Williamson. Defensively, these guys are an older but talented and smart group. Their secondary played very well in the last round against the Ducks. Now let's take a look at the California Golden Bears, who get in as the 2 seed. Cal is a very fascinating team. Last year, they snuck into the college football playoff after winning the conference championship. They upset Notre Dame, and they nearly beat TCU, who eventually won the national title. Going into this year, Cal had some real expectations, and although things were very rocky at times, the Golden Bears have made it back into the playoff with even more expectations to potentially make a big run. Nobody has faced against more adversity than this Cal team, who went 12-1 this year. They lost to an FCS opponent in their first game of the year, and they have been perfect since then, winning out. But even through their wins, this team has faced a lot of adversity, particularly at the quarterback position. In the game against Washington, their starter, Rufus Motley, who led them to the playoff last year, ended up suffering a long-term injury. The backup, Marquise Harris, ended up playing phenomenally. Now the starter, Rufus Motley, is fully healthy for the first time since week 4, and Cal is going to have to make a decision. Do you keep going with the hot hand, Marquise Harris, or do you give the keys of the car back to Rufus Motley, the guy who you've built your offense around and the guy who's won a college football playoff game in the past? It's certainly a tough decision that Cal is going to have to navigate. They're going to be relying on their key skill position players even more so than ever. Guys like Harrison Myers, Mamuto Damba, and Eberle Keltstan. Their defense is the best in the Pac-12. They've got a bunch of pass rushers and plenty of good players in the secondary. In the quarterfinals last year, Cal lost against the defending national champion TCU Horned Frogs, and they only lost that game by 2. Another fascinating storyline is the 2 seed has never won a playoff game in this series. In year 1, it was Middle Tennessee State. They lost to Georgia in their first game. Last year, it was Ohio State, who lost to Florida. Can Cal break the trend, or will Georgia dethrone another 2 seed? Let's get the Fiesta Bowl started here at the University of Phoenix Stadium, home of the Arizona Cardinals. This game is a lot closer to Cal's campus, so you'd think it'd be like a home game for them. But look at all that red in the crowd. Georgia's got a big showing of fans today. Cal's got to make a decision on who they want to start there as their quarterback for the playoff, and we have been hyping this up for a while. And ultimately, they're going to be rocking with the hot hand. Marquise Harris will be California's starting quarterback going forward for the rest of the way. Both Harris and Motley have one more season of eligibility left, so depending on what happens here in the playoffs, it'll be very interesting to follow that storyline as we eventually get into the offseason of who Cal is going to keep. So Cal will start with the ball. I'm really excited to see what Marquise Harris can do, as he is now Cal's starting quarterback at least for the rest of the season. Not a particularly good start. Harrison Myers loses 4, wrapped up by the junior defensive lineman Akin Fenwa. Cal would do nothing on their opening drive as we get a look at Georgia. 3rd and 12. It's a screen for the true freshman, Miko Alexander, who gets the first down. Alexander was inconsistent in the regular season, but he really flashed his talent against Oregon in the first round. Georgia would kick a field goal. They lead 3-0, and Cal is going to look to quickly respond. Self 2, the slot receiver, gets over 20 yards on that play. Marquise Harris trying to find a groove against a very good Georgia front unit as he's nearly intercepted there on 3rd down. A nice deflection in the secondary by the senior safety, Amani Ward, a projected second-round pick in this year's draft. So Cal would tack on 3 points, and this game is now tied up. Rufus Motley's first play on the field is as the field goal holder. So Georgia gets it back. Their last drive, they scored a field goal. Ketchikan goes downfield. He had a receiver open for a touchdown, but he overthrew him. Solid coverage by Roscoe Jenkins Cole, and Cal gets it back on first down. Harris with a nice throw back to 2. That would get them in the red zone, but they'd be unable to punch it in. So they'll have to settle for another field goal, and the Golden Bears are now ahead 6-3. Georgia has it back here in the second quarter. 3rd and 11. It's a screen for the other freshman running back, Marquise Harris, and he only gets around 4. Hit out of bounds by the defensive tackle Marcus Clayton, and Georgia's offense has gone silent. Cal gets it back. Harris evades the pocket, has all day to throw it, and launches a dime downfield from Mamamuto Dumba, a projected 1st to 2nd round pick in this year's draft, with a huge gain for the Golden Bears. Cal's offense is really finding a groove. Here's Harrison Myers, cuts to the right side, and brings it to the 30. A nice run for Myers. However, Cal would again not be able to find the end zone. Cal is having no problem marching down the field and scoring, but they're only able to get field goals, and they're only up by 6, even though their offense is playing really well. Georgia gets it back, 3rd and 5. Ketchikan under pressure, and he is a yard shy of the first down marker. Big play for Cal's defense, who looks really good right now. The Golden Bears have it back on 3rd down. Harris is sacked. He can't get rid of it. It is wrapped up by Duke Hawkins, the young linebacker. So Georgia gets it back late in the first half. Here's Miko Alexander, cuts to the right side, and he is gone! Touchdown, Georgia Bulldogs! The true freshman, Miko Alexander, gets the first touchdown for either team today, and Georgia is back ahead. The Bulldog fired up, as it's now 10-9. Georgia would get it back late in the first half. On first down, Aram Ketchikan, the lefty, has a wide-open man downfield, and he connects for a touchdown. Obafemi Chukwukema with the score, and it's now 17-9. Georgia rattles off 14 quick points, and the Bulldogs had the momentum going into halftime. We'll see if Georgia can keep it rolling here in the second half. Cal's offenses look good, but they've not been able to find the end zone. Georgia opens up with the ball. Ketchikan up the middle, the good start, as he gets a gain of around 15 or so in the hands of Roger Nicholson. Following play for Georgia, Ketchikan with plenty of time to throw it, really settling in as he launches a dime into the hands of Chukwukema, who had the touchdown on the last drive. Georgia's offense started off slow, but now they look really good. There's the tight end, Jair Williamson, gets it inside the 10. Georgia would get it all the way to the 1, but would not be able to punch it in. Rather than going for it, they kick the field goal. And I actually don't hate that call, because now you make it a 2-score game, even if kicking a field goal at the 1 is a wimp move. Cal's offense gets nothing. Georgia will get it back with an opportunity to extend the lead, or maybe not. Miko Alexander loses 3, wrapped up by Zishan Juthani, one of the better linebackers in this year's draft class. So Georgia's going to look to kick the field goal. This is no gimme, a 52-yard try, and this kick is up. Doink! No good! A big miss for Georgia's field goal kicker. Cal has to take advantage. 3rd and 7. Harris's pass is intercepted. Nigel Deacon picks it off, and he will take it all the way for a Georgia pick 6. A costly turnover for Marquise Harris, who only threw 1 interception this year with Cal, doubles his total, and it's 27-9. All of a sudden, Georgia has scored 24 unanswered points. Harris has got to get back into it as he gets a nice throw to the tight end, Andrew Barrett. 2nd and 11. Harris looks to throw it with time, under pressure now, goes downfield, and it is intercepted again. Nigel Deacon, the junior corner, a projected first-rounder in next year's draft, has back-to-back drives with interceptions. Georgia would tack on 3. They now lead 30-9. Cal has a 4th and 5. Harris's pass is broken up. The linebacker, Grant Rambo, with a huge hit, and Georgia's going to look to ice the game. It's a handoff for Miko Alexander on 2nd down, and he fumbles the ball, and it's picked up by the Cal defense, and they finally will score a touchdown. Rodney McNeil, the safety, is caught at the end by the wide receiver Monty Grant, but not before scoring. Cal finally gets a touchdown, but it's not on offense, so who really gives a damn? Cal's got to go for the onside kick now. They have nothing else to lose, and it is going to be recovered by the Georgia Bulldogs. And with that, I think this game is over. For a second time in 3 years, the Georgia Bulldogs are going to the Final Four as they defeat Cal 33-16. In all 3 games today, the lower seed has won, and all of the higher seeded first round bye teams are getting eliminated. Georgia was certainly the better team in this matchup, and they started off slowly, but they really got things going at the end of the first half, and they continued to apply the pressure in the second half. Georgia will face off against Ohio State in the semifinals for a spot in the national championship game. That's going to be a really fun matchup. Marquise Harris ultimately was pretty disappointing today. He threw 2 interceptions, which, again, to put things in perspective, he only had 1 all season, and it's not like Cal could really run the ball all that well. With Harris's poor performance today, I think it is a real question of who Cal is going to rock with at quarterback next year. Do they go back to Marquise Harris, who played so well for the most part down the stretch, or do they give the job back to Rufus Motley, who they designed the offense around? Defensively, Cal was inconsistent. They started off strong, then things went kind of south. They did get a defensive touchdown late in the game, but it ultimately did not matter. Aram Ketchikan was very solid. He wasn't great, but he didn't have to be great. Georgia asked him to be a game manager. They asked him to be Kirk Cousins and make a few big throws, and Ketchikan did great in that role. Despite a late fumble, Miko Alexander, the freshman, had another big game, and Obafemi Chukwukema really showed his upside as this team's future number 1 receiver. Defensively, Georgia was phenomenal with 2 interceptions by Nigel Deacon. That defense looked great, and they are going to give Puma Whitlock and the Ohio State offense a major challenge in the semifinals. Let's go to the final game of the day, and one that I'm very intrigued about. It's the Discover Orange Bowl. The number 8 seeded Middle Tennessee State Blue Raiders look to make history and get back to the semifinals for a 3rd consecutive season. Their test is the Florida Gators, the best team right now in college football. Middle Tennessee State got an automatic bid. They nearly got a first-round bye, but they came up just short of Virginia Tech. And in hindsight, maybe they should have gotten the first-round bye over Virginia Tech, who looked utterly awful today. The Blue Raiders have looked very solid this year. They have only lost 1 game, albeit a pretty bad loss to Southern Miss. But they're coming off a nice comeback win at home against Duke. That was a really close game. They obviously had that crazy conference championship against UAB where they honestly should have lost if not for a game-tying touchdown at the buzzer. So Middle Tennessee State has looked vulnerable these last couple of weeks, but they've really thrived within that moment. And again, no team has made the playoffs more than Middle Tennessee State in this series. They are due for a championship. Wouldn't you think? They've made the semifinals 2 years in a row and have been just short of making the Natty both times. They've got plenty of great playmakers alongside Drain Ignatius. Defensively, this is one of the best teams in the country, led by cornerback Eric Lilly, amongst other great players. But this team has a major test in front of them because the Florida Gators have been the best team in the country this year, period. Florida went 11-1 in the regular season. Their only loss came in Week 3 against a damn good Oklahoma team. Florida wound up winning the SEC championship game over Alabama, and that's the last we have seen of them. The Gators got the number 1 seed in decisive fashion with 94 of the possible 111 first-place votes, and for good reason. This has been the best team in college football this year. They won the best conference in the country. They beat Alabama twice. They clobbered Georgia. Did you guys just see Georgia dominate their college football playoff game? Yeah, that team got blown out by Florida. The Gators also blew out Florida State. They are playing their best football right now, and there is a reason why going into the playoff, Florida was the overall favorite to win the national title. Ernie Capillar has not been great in big games throughout his collegiate career, and he's going to look to change the narrative here. They've got a good group of skill position players with Brandon Pickens, Chris Gentry, and Tondrick Suggs. Their defense is really, really solid as well. Last year, Florida was the 7th seed in the college football playoff. They got an at-large spot, and they made it all the way to the semifinals before losing to the eventual national champion TCU Horned Frogs. Last year in the playoff, I found myself kind of disappointed with the play of quarterback Ernie Capillar, who played a lot better this year. He was pretty good, but not great in the SEC championship game, and I'm really curious to see how he does here against a really good Middle Tennessee State defense. And yes, Middle Tennessee State only comes from the American Athletic. They're only a Group 5 team, but they just beat Duke, one of the best teams in the ACC. Middle Tennessee State can hang with anybody. Welcome to the Orange Bowl as Middle Tennessee State, the number 8 seed, faces off against the number 1 seeded Florida Gators for a spot in the semifinals. The winner will face off against the Oklahoma Sooners. On first down, Capillar keeps it on the read option and he loses 4. I told you, this defense is tough and stingy. Brandon Hall, the young safety, makes the play. On 3rd and 6, here's Ernie Capillar with a nice throw into the hands of Chris Gentry, the talented senior receiver, a projected 2nd to 3rd rounder in this year's draft, while Capillar himself is also a possible 2nd rounder. Big run up the middle by Richie Rhodes, the backup running back. And then on the following play, Rhodes would punch it in off of a screen pass. Good start for the Florida Gators as they are on the board. They lead at 7-0. This Florida team is a well-boiled machine. They have not lost since week 3, and again, they are playing their best football right now, and they look pretty good here in the first quarter against the Middle Tennessee State Blue Raiders. Into the second, 3rd and 10. Drain Ignatius goes short, and it is incomplete. Middle Tennessee State has now had 3 or 4 drives today, and they have gotten nothing going. Their offense has been completely shut down. As for Florida, their offense looks pretty good. On 3rd and 18, Capillar fumbles the ball, and it's picked up by Middle Tennessee State. A strip sack for the Blue Raider defense, and this can really change the trajectory of this football game. Florida had dominated through the first quarter or so until that play, and now Middle Tennessee State has a real opportunity to capitalize off of the momentum or not. Barrington Britt gets smothered in the backfield by the 3 safety Osmond Webb. Middle Tennessee State has not ran it well. They have not thrown it well. They have not done anything well on offense. What a dime downfield by Capillar into the hands of Chris Gentry for the touchdown. Florida extends their lead. The Gators look good so far as they lead 14-0. The other 3 teams with first-round byes, Virginia Tech, USC, and Cal, all lost. Florida does not look like they want the same fate. Middle Tennessee State's got to get something going. There's a nice play by the young receiver, Mamadi Bouare, who's probably going to be their number 1 receiver next year. That would lead to a field goal. At least Middle Tennessee State is on the board, but they've still got a lot of groundwork to do as they trail 14-3 going into halftime. Florida looks really good. Their offense hasn't been great, but it's been solid. And then defensively, the Gators look unbelievable right now. Into the second half, Florida opens up with the ball. It's a handoff up the middle, and Todrick Suggs loses 4. Middle Tennessee State's defense has made some good plays today. There's Brandon Hall again, bringing him down. Hall's been a big factor today for the Blue Raider defense as that would force a punt. Middle Tennessee State has it back. What a throw on 3rd down from Drain Ignatius, a projected 3rd rounder in this year's draft, into the hands of Bouare. Middle Tennessee State again would only kick a field goal, kicking here on 4th and short. Could have made the argument to go for it, but now it's a 1-score game, and Middle Tennessee State is really looking a lot better than they did early on. 3rd and 2, here's a nice run for Barrington Britt. The Blue Raiders have not ran the ball well at all today, and this is a team who loves to run the ball. They've got to get into a groove on the ground because right now they're getting dominated at the line of scrimmage, and now they're really getting comfortable running it. There's another good gain by the senior running back, Barrington Britt. Now in the red zone, 2nd and 1, Ignatius looks to throw it. He's got all day, and he connects downfield. It's Mamadi Bouare once again, who makes it a 1st and goal. Middle Tennessee State would get it all the way to around the 2, and on 4th and goal, they would elect to kick. Just like Cal, Middle Tennessee State is allergic to the end zone. They're moving the ball down the field, but they can't score touchdowns. So Florida gets it back, only up by 5. On 3rd down, the pass is nearly intercepted by Connor D'Angelo, who had the huge interception in overtime of the conference championship game. Now in the 4th quarter, look at Middle Tennessee State go. A huge throw by Ignatius into the hands of the Fred Biletnikoff Award finalist, Luther Lexeris. 3rd and 1 from the 2. Ignatius under pressure, throws it away in the back of the end zone. Middle Tennessee State has settled for field goals all night. They can't do it again. They've got to go for it and look to take the lead. 4th and 1. It's a handoff up the middle for Britt, and he does not get it. The Gators hold on to their lead as they get the stop. Florida's offense has looked extinct since the first half, and sure enough, on 3rd and 4, they only get 4. Rhodes is just shy of the 1st down marker. Middle Tennessee State will get another chance to take the lead. The Blue Raiders have been gift-wrapped at so many opportunities today. At some point, they've got to capitalize. Ignatius takes a shot downfield on 3rd and 12, broken up in the secondary by Christian Banks. So Middle Tennessee State would elect to punt. They trust their defense, and I do too. Middle Tennessee State's defense has been great in the first half. Florida's not running the ball with chewing the clock, which is so weird. Capelar goes downfield, it's tipped, and it is intercepted! How did he catch that? What just happened? Did he get both feet in bounds? Did he actually catch the ball? I don't know how you can call that an interception. He clearly was touching the out-of-bounds marker as he caught the ball, but they're going to call it an interception. Okay. So Middle Tennessee State has it back with another chance to win the game, probably their last one. Luther Lexerus gets the first down. Now it is a 3rd and 18. Ignatius looks to throw it. Pass caught short by Mamadi Bouare, who only gets around 6. So now it's a 4th and 12. The game probably on the line for Middle Tennessee State. Ignatius has time, takes a shot deep downfield, and it is caught! How is Middle Tennessee State staying alive? What a catch by Chris Curry. Now it's a 3rd and 1 and around the 6. Look at this clock. Under a minute to go. Ignatius under pressure, throws it away in the back of the end zone, and the game comes down to this. This has been such a weird game today. 4th and 1. The season on the line for Middle Tennessee State. I saw Florida's defensive tackle jump. No call as Britt gets the handoff, and he is stopped. This game is over. The Florida Gators survive by the skin of their teeth in a classic college football playoff game as they win 14-9. I know this game was not high scoring at all, but this was still a really, really fun matchup. This is not at all like Florida's playoff game last year against Nebraska that was low scoring. That game was just ugly, but this game was fun. Both offenses had no problem getting yardage, they just couldn't consistently score. Florida looked very vulnerable today, and I did not like their play calling at all. I don't think they trusted Ernie Capelar. They did not focus on throwing the ball until the end of the game when they should have been chewing clock. It's like the entire game they run the ball, and then the last drive when they should be running it, they kept throwing it. It was really weird. Florida ran the ball well, and I thought Ernie Capelar was pretty good, but I don't think Florida fully trusts Ernie Capelar in these big games. It was fine today because they won, but if Ernie Capelar is restricted like this again, there's no way they can beat Oklahoma. Defensively, Florida was great. That's why they won this game. They got clutch stops when they needed to. In Middle Tennessee State, they had no problems moving the ball down the field. They had it in the red zone so many times, but failed to find the end zone once. Drain Ignatius was fine. He wasn't bad, but he wasn't good either. The receivers were good. Lexerus and Bouare. Defensively, Middle Tennessee State was solid as well, but they did not make key offensive plays in key moments, and that's ultimately what costed them this game. Overall, I thought the games today, other than the Florida Middle Tennessee State one, were not as exciting as the last round. We had a lot of blowouts, and other than the last one, most of those games were not all that close. I think that suggests that these 4 teams who are left are truly the most deserving teams. We start with the number 1 seeded Florida Gators, who looked really vulnerable today, but they barely survived against Middle Tennessee State. They will face off against the 12-seeded Oklahoma Sooners, and at first glance, you see the highest seed against the lowest seed. Wouldn't the highest seed be the easy choice to win? Not so fast. I think Oklahoma's been the best team in the playoff period. They have 18 sacks through 2 games, and this is the only team who has beaten Florida this year. I think either team could win that game. In the other game, I think it's a toss-up as well. You have Ohio State coming off a big-time win against USC. They have all the talent in the world to do it, and again, they are still my national championship pick, but they're facing off against the great Georgia team, who just dominated Cal in the Orange Bowl, and Georgia's got a lot of guys from their Season 1 team who won the national title. So in the next episode, we will wrap up the college football playoff. We will go over both semifinal games, Florida versus Oklahoma, and Georgia and Ohio State. The 2 winners will go to the national championship, which also is in the next episode. So that'll wrap this one up. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Peace out.